Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending where you are watching from. I'm Ani Altamirano, and this is my YouTube channel, Empowering Teachers Worldwide. Probably the most frequently asked question about differentiated instruction is, how would I grade it? Because there is a sense that differentiation and grading are at odds with one another. Now, some educators think of differentiation as having different goals for different students. And this perspective makes teaching and learning much more confusing and complicated and turns grading into a total nightmare. Differentiation, however, seeks to provide multiple pathways and support systems to the same content goals. And this is very important to remember so that virtually all learners can achieve higher levels of success with the same essential knowledge, understanding, and skill. So, a teacher in a differentiated classroom is not grading students on different goals, but rather will provide feedback and grades based on a student's status relative to the same learning intentions. Some educators feel as though differentiation requires teachers to grade struggling learners easier and more advanced learners harder. That, too, is a misconception. All students in a differentiated classroom should be graded against the same clearly delineated criteria, that is, the KUDs. What a differentiated classroom does is provide an environment that maximizes students' opportunity to achieve and, whenever possible, move beyond those criteria. So, there are at least three interrelated issues integral to the philosophy of differentiation and are directly affected by assessment and grading practices. First, differentiation proposes that classroom practices, including assessment and grading, should be designed to contribute to a growth mindset in students and teachers. Secondly, differentiation exists to keep students' success to effort ratios in balance. That is, students at all levels of proficiency clearly see that their hard work or effort generally leads to visible success. And thirdly, differentiation proposes that a sense of team, of community, and collaboration is integral to student success, that students and teachers work to support maximum growth for all. And unfortunately, many current practices work directly against these three goals. For some students, the certainty of praise and success in school has become a drug. They continually need more. For many other students, year upon year of not good enough has eroded their intellectual self-confidence and resulted in a kind of mind-numbing malaise. Current assessment and grading practices are also counterproductive for a third group of students, those in the mid-ranges of achievement who get the continual message that they are just average and not likely to change. So, how we teach, assess, and grade too frequently creates winners and losers in the classroom and undercuts the sense that we are all stronger when we learn from one another and when we teach one another. Therefore, uh, an effectively differentiated classroom is invested in assessment and grading practices that are in sync with responsive teaching practices that clearly contribute to enlisting the effort of a full range of students to do the hard work of learning. So, the essential question is, are there practices that reflect and support best practice assessment and grading, as well as the underpinnings of differentiation. Best practices in assessment and grading are fully compatible with and supportive of the goals of quality differentiation. Best practice assessment and grading facilitate and enhance a robustly differentiated classroom. Grading and reporting should be seen as particular moments that happen periodically in a much longer cycle of planning, teaching, learning, feedback, and measurement. Teachings and learnings should be the primary focus of the classroom. Pre and ongoing assessments inform the teaching learning process. And at key points in a unit of study, summative assessments measure students' growth towards and beyond the KUDs. And as a result, in marks entered into a gradebook. So at the end of a designated marking period, the teacher marks into grades and communicates them on a report card. So grading and reporting should reflect and support good classroom practices, not dictate them. Now, measurement and assessment experts agree on a number of principles that contribute to grades that are consistent, accurate, meaningful, and supportive of learning. And they necessarily involve formative and summative practices as well as the grading moment, because those areas are all part of the assessment cycle. So, let's have a look at those principles. First of all, base grades on clearly specified learning goals. When a teacher is clear about the goals and how they work together to help learners make meaning of and use of content, it's not a great leap to make sure they are clear about all these principles as well. And at that point, lessons have a purpose and students understand that purpose. Assessment are transparent vehicles for helping students see how close they are to the targets, and for helping them continue growth towards and beyond those targets. And grades communicate student status relative to these known targets. So this increases reliability because it provides consistency across classroom, and increases validity because it ensures that assessments measure what they are intended to measure. It decreases error, it also supports a growth mindset, and contributes to a sense of community. Also, we need to use grades that are criterion based, not comparative or norm based. When students are compared with one another, they come to believe that the goal is competition rather than personal improvement. And often the result is that struggling learners come to believe that they lack the capacity for success. And high achieving students conclude that access is their right and not the result of hard work. So our aim should be to do everything possible to make sure that students achieve specified goals or criteria for success, not to sort or rank them. The third principle is don't overgrade student work. Learning challenging content is useful, takes hard work and lots of practice. Along the way to this kind of deep learning, false starts, mistake, redirection will necessarily occur. So it's important to help students see a direct connection between what we ask them to do for practice at school and at home and their academic growth, between the quality of their practice and their developing competence. Grades should derive from summative assessment, not from formative assessment. So when we grade students while they are learning, they often see the grades as the end of learning. Also, use only quality assessments. Quality assessments are associated with higher student achievement because perhaps those assessments suggest teachers whose planning and instruction are of high quality as well. And perhaps because such assessments encourage students to participate more enthusiastically in the learning process. Assessments are effective when they measure student proficiency on clearly designated learning goals that are known to the students, and when they are carefully aligned with teaching and learning, no trick questions or gotcha items. Also, reduce the grade fog. A grade should communicate as clearly as possible what the students know, understand, and can do at a given point in time. Grade fog arises from anything we do in the teaching, learning, assessment, grading cycle that muddles the clarity of the grade. Grade fog begins to appear when we deduct points from an assessment because a piece of work isn't neat, because it is late, because the student's name is left off the papers, or we give extra credit to a grade. So when a grade serves multiple masters, it serves none of them well. Also, grade more heavily later in a grading cycle rather than earlier. When a student gets better marks later in a marking period, it suggests effort and growth, which are two predictors for success. Early deficiencies in the same content ought not to erode the student's growth or discourage persistence. And last but not least, when it's time for report cards, use 3P grading. Now, when we try to pack a wide variety of student characteristics into one grade, that grade is not a valid reflection of any of them and presents an inaccurate picture of a student's proficiency. One solution is to practice the 3P grading, that is, to report separate grades for a student's performance or product, for the student's process or habits of mind, and work that characterizes success that we hope to help students develop, and the student's progress in specified objectives. These three P's should not be averaged into one report card grade. Rather, they should be reported separately and with clear indicators of what each element represents. Now, students bring to the classroom a variety of differences. Regardless of these individual differences, they are all expected to master the same content standards unless there are formal plans on record that indicate otherwise. So, the dual reality of student differences juxtaposed with common expectations requires us educators to create classrooms that respect those differences and are thus structured to provide varied ways in which students can meet common content expectations. It is effective attention to student variance that encourages students to reach for successively higher levels of proficiency, provides an environment that supports the risk of learning, and presents students with a reason for optimism that each day will result in incremental success towards important goals. So, creating a learning environment that invites every student to learn and fuels the learning process calls on us teachers to be leaders, but leaders who balance, challenge, and support, who dignifies the learners and the learning, and who understands the fragility, particularly the fragility of being young and vulnerable. So let's bear this in mind. When we earn the trust of our students and we teach them to be trustworthy with one another, anything is possible. And everything in the classroom is designed to make that belief something tangible. Okay, so This is the last video in this 3-video series of embedding formative assessment in the differentiated classroom. If you have questions, comments, impressions, please just send me a message, write something in the comments here. Make sure to visit my blog. You are going to find more information here, or watch the other videos here. Also, if you visit my blog, you will find there a way of subscribing to my free newsletter where you will get special content only for you. And remember, the newsletter is free and you can unsubscribe at any minute. So, till the next one, hope to see you soon. Bye bye.